Good afternoon, everyone. I am Lisa, and I am so excited to be here. We just talked about, as you can see on the screen, how to equip my frontline staff to provide the best customer service that also grows customer loyalty. And customer loyalty is what we want to focus in on this webinar. And there's some points that I made in the webinar that we just had, and I'll cover those, and then I'm also maybe going to expand a little bit on a few things too. So when it comes to customer loyalty, the first thing for us to always make sure that we're on the same page about is what's the difference between customer loyalty and customer satisfaction. So you can see here, customer satisfaction is a measure of the degree in which the product or service meets a customer's expectation. Now, here's the thing about customer satisfaction. It's about being in the moment. So in the moment with the transaction that just happened, how satisfied are you? How satisfied are you? Now, that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with, am I going to buy from you again? So as we go into customer loyalty, that's when we get customers who will repeat buy from us and buy more and tell other people. So they're our own little marketing crew. So customer loyalty is what we're talking about today, and there are all sorts of different influences to customer loyalty. Product, quality, timeliness, all those things, and we know that the rep has influence over customer loyalty too. We've all seen statistics such as in one poll, 89% of the customers polled said that companies need to do better with their customer service. 89% say that the customer service that experience that they receive isn't good enough. And then in other polls, like one said 70% of the customers polled said, if a customer experience is something that didn't feel good, it wasn't a good customer experience, it was maybe neutral or negative, then it's easy for them to go somewhere else. So customer loyalty, reps influence that quite a bit. Customer interactions have a huge influence on customer loyalty. And so that's what it is that we're focusing in on. So there are a variety of studies that we've done some research here at Bonfire about that have talked about, so how is it that reps influence customer loyalty? So with this one, it says the Great Work Study, O.C. Tanner Institute. Now, O.C. Tanner Institute also had a lot of influence from some research that Forbes magazine did, and so there's a lot going on in this research, and I just grabbed one quote from it, and it says there are specific skills that anyone can practice to increase the odds of producing great work that others love. So, in the research, it shows what those skills are. And then as we continue on, this next one, it says the effortless experience. And this is a book that's got amazing research around all sorts of different things. And one of them literally says this quote, it says, our goal in their research, our goal was to learn exactly what rep skills and behaviors have the biggest impact on improving customer loyalty and creating a superior customer experience. So in this book, again, the skills are right there. And so there's all sorts of different research about this. And what was interesting is that as we're poring over this research and looking at the reports, we saw different skills starting to be common in these. And so what we've done here at Bonfire is we've put together, and I'll just show you, here are 6 skills that improve your advantage in your reps creating customer loyalty. So here are the 6 skills. So first, empathy. And some of you may have seen a webinar that we did on empathy. And if you haven't, please pop on the website, the bonfire.com, bonfiretraining.com website, because we've got a live webinar about empathy. Again, it's about a 30-minute webinar. Now, empathy is all about the care and concern for others. And it goes very deep. It's talking about, listening with your whole heart, listening to the point of like your life depended on it, because then at that point, that's when that connection can happen. At that point, that's when we can genuinely show care and concern. So empathy is one of those skills that sets reps apart when it comes to creating an advantage to creating customer loyalty. Now, another skill, customer advocacy. Customer advocacy is, let me explain it this way. It is, many of us have heard of first call resolution, all right? And within first call resolution, there's something called next issue avoidance. Next issue avoidance. So that's what customer advocacy is all about. Excuse me. It is all about stopping and thinking about what's the next thing that I can do for this person. Now, here's the warning about that. Here's the caution, is that we don't want to deluge our customers with all this information, because we know that too much information shuts them down. What we want to do is we want to think about, in the moment with this issue, regarding the solution that will get them to just be loyal and just really really be happy. What's something that I can do next? I can answer their questions, and then what else do I know that's important to tell them? So it's important to even ask yourself, when your reps are on the phone or having a customer conversation, just one question. Just ask themselves this: what's one more thing I can do for this customer to make sure they're on the right track? What's one more thing I can do for this customer to make sure that they're on the right track? So that's customer advocacy. Now, next one, resiliency. Resiliency is about being able to keep going in a very productive, thriving way. Now, resiliency is not all about, oh, I had this bad experience and maybe things will be better tomorrow. No, resiliency is about game on. That right now I'm going to take call after call after call, and every call is going to be a new day. Every call is showtime. So that's what resiliency is about. And actually, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into resiliency in just a minute. Let's go ahead and reveal the rest of these skills. So adaptability. Adaptability is recognizing that no one is the same. One size does not fit all. So it's critically important for us to stop and think about, how do I work with this customer? And then how do I work with that customer? And if I find myself often asking the same questions over and over again, using the same language over and over again, using the same voice tone over and over again with customers, then I'm lacking in adaptability. I want to pick up on how that other customer wants to be treated. All right, so adaptability. Next one. Ask great questions. Ask great questions. Again, another thing with asking great questions is like with empathy, it's this, it starts with really listening. So if I just ask questions, that doesn't mean they're necessarily great questions. Something that Anthony Robbins says, when you ask better questions, you get better answers. So what are better questions? Well, a lot of it has to do with listening. Listening, again, as if your life depends on it. Asking great questions. All right, next, persuasion. So with persuasion, how do I influence someone to help them take the next step? How do I influence someone to help resolve this? How do I influence someone to, so it's all about influence. And again, just like with adaptability, it's not one size fits all. So what sort of customer focused statements am I saying? What sort of, am I in a personal conversation with them? So looking at those different behaviors that create persuasion. All right, so we've got these great skills, and again, these are 6 skills that we saw popping up over and over again in research, and so that's why they're all clustered together to help provide an advantage for your reps to create customer loyalty. So let's continue our journey with resiliency. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into it. You can see, says resiliency, bounce back ability, and that's actually a word now. It's something that was coined a while back. So you can see Bernard Williams. He's a philosopher, and he has this great thing to say about resiliency. Man has never made a material more resilient than the human spirit. Highly inspirational. And then we look at another person, very inspirational, Helen Keller. I am only one, but I still am one. I cannot do everything, but I still can do something. And then here's the bottom line regarding resiliency. I will not refuse to do something I can do. So when you think about resiliency, here's the great news, is that psychologists tell us it's something we can develop. We're not necessarily born with it, we can develop it. And so like what Helen Keller is saying, I will not refuse to do something I can do. Resiliency is something we can do. So how? Let's go to the next slide. So in this slide, it talks about all sorts of tips for creating resiliency. And let me jump in and explain these. So it says moving from being a victim to being a survivor, then becoming a thriver. So victim, those are the people that it's just natural to just look at the blaming first, going to the negative first. Oh gosh, if they would have only told me, then everything would be okay. It's lack of ownership. And then transitioning out of that into a survivor. Now, survivor is much better than the victim. Think about with a survivor, there still can have that negativity around them a little bit. You know, oh man, okay, I got through that one. So it's taking the right step toward the next thing, being a thriver. Thriver is no matter the environment, I recognize what I can do. I recognize the attitude I can bring to this. I recognize the control I have over me and the influence I have over other things. So, great tip regarding resiliency. Let's go to the next one. Next one talks about ratio of 3 times as many positive emotions to, 3 times as many positive emotions to 1 negative emotion on a daily basis. Let me say that again, daily basis. So stop and think about Sean Aker is a positive psychologist. And one of the things that he talks about is he says the things that we focus on, that's the lens that we see the world through. And so that creates our reality. So if I am involved in gossip, if I am involved in, oh, woe is me, if I am involved, then I'm creating this negativity. And so then how do I have a productive environment in order to be more resilient? Well, 3 times positive to 1 negative. And so what can a positive be? Well, positive can be something that I smile more often. A positive could be that I interact with other people more often. There's something that is called social capital. And if you jump on TED.com, which is this great, wonderful website that has all sorts of videos in it, and they all are anywhere from a couple minutes to 18 minutes. And if you look up Margaret Heffernan, and her last name is H-E-F as in Frank, E-R-N-A-N, Margaret Heffernan, and she has a great TED Talk out there that talks about just the power of that social connection. And so maybe that's one way that you get your positives in. So anyway, again, a great tip for resiliency. Now the next one, degree of personal control and the extent to which we focus our time and energies on tasks and situations where we have some impact and influence. All right, so let's break this down. First off, personal control. Personal control, for all of us to stop and recognize how much control we actually have with ourselves. We have a great opportunity with ourselves. And keep in mind, where we focus, that's where our energy will go. So if I focus on the negative, if I focus on what's going wrong, if I focus on how hard that last customer interaction was, then that's where my energy goes. And there's something in life called lifters and leaners. So are you someone that lifts people up and you're an optimist and a realist? You make sure that, hey, okay, so that call, I handle it. I was an advocate for them. I made sure that they got everything that they needed, and now it's on to the next call, so I can do the next thing. Or do you focus on, oh my gosh, I can't believe that last call and everything. So where do you focus? Because that's where your energy goes. Do you lift people up, or do you make them lean over and you just suck energy out of them? All right, so these are great tips for resiliency. Here's the question, though. How do we do these? And it's so important for us to look at behaviors. And something that Yoda, was it Yoda that said, try not, or either try or not try? Either do it or not do it, because there's no try. So how do we either do it or not do it? So how do we become resilient and know that we're on the right path to becoming more resilient? So it's important for us to look at behaviors, actual behaviors. All right, so here are 4 behaviors to creating resiliency. The first one, grateful. Now, it is so important for us to stop and think about us being grateful. And remember, I mentioned Sean Aker and the Happiness Advantage. He's got a great TED Talk too, so TED.com. He talks about the power of just thinking about yesterday and writing down 3 things you're grateful for. And you'll see some information in the chat box that people were grateful for. There were things like family, friends, dogs, National Wine Day got a shout out. There are all sorts of different things that people were grateful for. And what I encourage is that think very specifically about what you're grateful for. So literally yesterday, what am I grateful for? Like, for example, yesterday, I am grateful that my teenage daughter, 18 years old, took time to talk to me, literally talk to me about her day. It wasn't one of those things about everything was good. She literally had a conversation with me, and I am highly grateful for that. And it brings a smile to my face. I can feel the smile coming. And so thinking very, very specifically, what are you grateful for? So it's one of the things to help you with your bounce back ability, resiliency, because it helps you feel good and helps you refocus yourself to move forward. All right, so what are you grateful for? And there are all sorts of wonderful things listed there. Remember, the key is be specific. Think about yesterday or the day before. Be specific. What am I grateful for about yesterday? All right, next. The next one, it says impossible and unable. So you can see that the two negative parts are crossed out, M and the un. This is all about self-talk. So what is it that you feed yourself? What do you say to yourself? What do you hear your reps say? Do you hear your reps say things like, oh, this is hard? And is that a repeater for them? Is it one of those things that you see eye rolls? That's self-talk. That they are internalizing feelings whenever they say things, or you see body language that is more negative. That's self-talk. Body language creates feelings. Now, something about body language, it is so powerfully a creator of our feelings that we really want to stop and think about our body language. So, for example, well, actually, let me give you another great resource. And there is, her name is Amy Cuddy. Last name is Cuddy, Amy Cuddy. You can pop on TED.com. She has a TED Talk, and also she has some books and things coming out. So, so look her up, and it's about body language. And it talks about how do we pose ourselves? What do we do? Like power poses that make you feel confident, or are we all together and shriveled up? So what is it that we do that influences how we feel? And one of the big things is, what do we say to ourselves? Oh, I'll never get that done. Oh, I can't believe this is happening. This is horrible. So what do we say to ourselves? Now, here's one of the reasons it's so important, is because our subconscious believes absolutely everything we say to ourselves. The subconscious does not discern between real and fake. We code ourselves. And as a matter of fact, research even says when you're sleeping, make sure you turn off the TV, because whatever's coming on in the TV, your subconscious, when you go to sleep, your subconscious takes over. And so when you fall asleep, your subconscious is taking in everything it hears on TV. So it's very, very powerful, our subconscious, and it's just innocently taking everything in. So we want to feed it well. So what's our self-talk? All right, next one. Your attitude is like a price tag. It shows how valuable you are. The bottom line with attitude is that you can create it, and it's contagious. And the key is being aware in the moment. What's my attitude right now? What do I want my attitude to be? How am I impacting people around me? Attitude, and I'll share with you, and this is from Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl is a survivor of the Holocaust. Horrific experiences that he had. He has a book. He has a variety of books. One is called Man's Search for Meaning. It's an incredible read about the power that we have over ourselves and creating our attitude. So he comes through this, horrid experience. Any of you that have been to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. know what I'm talking about. Just the quietness in that museum, and the images that you see, and their artifacts, their pictures, their stories. It's hard to take in. It's unbelievably emotional. And so Viktor Frankl literally goes through that experience, and then he says to us, the last of human freedoms is to create one's own attitude. And so stop and think about the power we have over our attitude and what it does for us. All right, now, the last behavior regarding creating resiliency. Keep calm and take care of yourself. This is one of those things that goes, yep, makes sense, absolutely. Some of us are great at this. Other people have great intentions. Sometimes we get to it, sometimes we don't. Other people, it's not even on their radar. They just go, 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 go. So stop and think about the power of taking care of yourself and the impact it has on you being able to be resilient, that bounce back ability. When something happens, what is it that I do to make sure that I'm ready? So let me share with you something. This was an interesting story someone shared with me. There's a gentleman, and he had 2 heart attacks, and they were horrible heart attacks. And he said his doctor said, I'm not sure why you survived either one of these heart attacks. And so the guy said, well, I want to figure that out. And what they discovered was this gentleman is a weightlifter. And it's not that he is this big bodybuilder weightlifter. He just has enjoyed lifting weights, and he has for years upon years. And that has prepared him for the stress that his body experienced during those heart attacks. So the power of being prepared when challenges and stress hit is critical. And that's what this behavior is all about. Take care of yourself. Eat, sleep, exercise, relax, take a break. Take a break. One of the things to keep in mind regarding the power of taking a break is that when we take a break and we come back to whatever we were doing, our energy level is higher. Our focus is, we have more attention on things. Taking a break has huge value. So what do you do to take care of yourself? There is a book, it's called Eat, Move, Sleep, or Eat, Sleep, Move. And it's by Tom Rath, and it talks all about some really interesting research about sleep and things, but it talks about the value of just those three simple things on ourselves. So that's key to resiliency. So here are 4 behaviors. And remember, we're talking about specific actions. That's what behaviors are. So thinking about your self-talk, not just thinking about it, but doing it. So there's something for us to stop and think about right now, because we have these great behaviors regarding resiliency. There's something to consider, and it's this. How are you wired? If you're on autopilot, do all 4 of those behaviors still happen? If we right now said to ourselves, hey, I want to be more resilient, so I'm going to make sure I do all 4 of those things. And then when a challenging situation comes up, do we switch on autopilot? Now, the reason I ask this is because of this. When we're in a high stress or very, very busy, lots of demands on us, that's when our autopilot tends to engage. And our autopilot will never always work. Some of our autopilots will have us missing some of those behaviors of being resilient. So for example, let's say that I'm really, really busy and I stop taking care of myself. I skip breakfast, I may have lunch, let me just grab a cracker or 2. So all of a sudden I've started compromising something that I said I wanted to do because I want to be more resilient. So what happens a lot of times when we go on autopilot is that our focus starts going on the technical things to do. What transactions do I need to make sure that I've got completed? So autopilot is something for us to make sure that we don't go into. We want to stay aware, because even though we commit that we want to do these 4 behaviors of resiliency, autopilot can work against us. So let's talk a little about autopilot. And there's a basic question, and it's this. How are you wired? So stop and think about yourself at work. Are you more of an introvert? Are you more of an extrovert? Are you more reserved? Or are you more animated? Are you a person that is patient or not so patient? Are you someone that's quick to anger? Or are you someone that has just no anger at all? Maybe even poker faced. So let me pop to the next slide and I'll go a little deeper into what I'm talking about. Many of you, I know, have heard about DISC, D-I-S-C, and you can see around that circle, those are 4 behavioral styles. And back in the 1920s, a man by the name of William Marston, he studied the general population, basically, and he said there are basically 4 styles in the general population. Now, here's the interesting thing. We all have all 4 of these styles in us, just at varying degrees. Now, that's what creates our autopilot. So for example, with the dominant, the D, that's the person that is task-oriented and also very fast-paced. So for an extreme example on what a D stereotypically might be, would be like a stock market floor trader. So the people that are very aggressive, they like control, they're visionaries, they are, and you can see there's some great descriptors on here too. They like risk. They make change happen. So they're positive strengths of every style, and there are also limitations to every style. So stop and think about, if we go back to our 4 behaviors. So when we look at this, and if we say, all right, so a D, if someone has a dominant D, which one of these 4 styles might go to the wayside and they forget about when they start getting into a difficult situation. For example, I would say probably being grateful. They don't stop to think about the past and what happened and what they're grateful for. They want to make sure that they get things done and they're quick to it. So that's one of the ones, if they're on autopilot, that can just stop happening for them. And so all of a sudden, they're working against themselves regarding their resiliency. Now, the other one, so the I is the influencer, and again, it's another extreme example to help quickly know what an I is like. So an I is like a comedian. So it's high energy, optimistic, likes being center of attention, likes variety, those type of things. You can see there's some great, the promoter when they can be impulsive. They can have a limited filter on what they say. Just all sorts of different things make up this, this great energy of an I. Remember, everyone has strengths, everyone has limitations. Then the S says steadiness, more reserved and focused on others. That's what drives them. They're great listeners, they're loyal, wonderful team players. So think about the S. And remember the behavior of taking care of yourself? That's one that could fall off the radar for them if they're on autopilot. Because taking care of yourself isn't natural for them because they're focused on other people. Then the C. The C is like the scientist, looking at processes, procedures. The how we get to the result is important to them. They're natural at asking questions. So this data and details are very, very important to them. So when you stop and think about when they're on autopilot and those 4 behaviors, well, it could be that they take so much time, they're on autopilot, they take so much time to analyze things that they never get to actually implementing. So our autopilot is something that never always works, and our autopilot can actually work against us. So the bottom line is that once we know behaviors of resiliency, then it's so critically important for us to stop and ask ourselves, well, of these 4 behaviors, which one's going to come easy for me and which one's going to be harder? Because I want to make sure I do all 4 of them. So which is going to be easier, which one is going to be harder? And knowing how you're wired gives you great insight into that. So now with this webinar, we have limited time, so I only jumped into resiliency, that one skill set. Now you see here on the left side it says customer service advantage. That is a workshop where we at Bonfire, we've taken all this research and all sorts of things. We've created this workshop because it's really important for reps to be equipped in order to really impact in a very purposeful, intentional way customer loyalty. So what we've done with these 6 skill sets is this. All 6 skill sets, we've answered these 5 questions. We've defined the skill. And then we look at tips and techniques like we looked at a little bit with resiliency. And then application. So in the work environment, what sort of customer interactions are your representatives involved in? And what role does resiliency play? And do you see them bouncing back? Or do you see them just having a lot of downtime because call after call is hard? One of the crazy things about being a frontline person is that a lot of what you hear are problems because that's when people contact us. So it's looking at those different customer situations and going, all right, so how do I apply these behaviors so I can bounce back between each one of these customer interactions? And then awareness of personal tendencies. So that's where the DISC, the DISC, comes into place. So DISC is it's creating that awareness around yourself so you'll know what's going to come easy for you in the behaviors of, like for resiliency, like we talked about, or what's going to come harder. And so what do I do to make sure that I'm committed to doing all those behaviors? And then that creates your plan. It's a very personal plan because we're all wired differently. So here at Bonfire, again, we have put together the customer service advantage. So let us know, and happy to talk to you about some more information with that, because all of these 5 things with each one of these skill sets definitely helps equip your representatives to be more focused on customer loyalty. So we end with the same question that we started with. How do I equip my frontline staff to provide the best service that also grows customer loyalty? Well, what we know from research, from experiences, from reports, is that these 6 skills have immense impact on your reps being able to create an experience that really helps with customer loyalty. All right, so I so appreciate you watching this, and you'll see a lot of involvement that we had going on during the webinar. Again, any sort of questions, feel free to let us know and contact us easily at info@bonfiretraining.com, and we'll make sure to get that website out to you all. And thank you very much for joining us.